for the IE503 course on inventory. We are going to start a new topic on inventory. I had shared some notes yesterday. So I just wanted to try. So today we are, apart from the lecture, we are going to try to see whether I can use this board space so that it is easier to explain, especially during live interaction. Sometimes there are questions for which we may need to work out some numericals. It is kind of faster for me if I can use a board or some other surface. So we are trying to see whether that will work. So now on your interface, you will be able to see that slides. That is inventory introduction, the title slide. And in the MS Teams interface, you will also see my picture. So if you click my picture, that will come big in your screen. So when something is written on the board, you can always click my picture to make it bigger so that you can see what is happening. And then if you want to see what is in the slide, then you just click the slide picture. So if you click my image, the slide and my photo will interchange. So you guys can try it. So yeah. So I request the TA Tejas is coordinating today. So maybe you can type this message in the chat and to see whether people are able to see it. Since I'm a little away, I will not be able to monitor the chat messages so clearly. So my request is for you to, you can unmute and just talk just like in a class. So let me close some background applications. Give me a minute. Yeah, back. So I had shared some notes. I'm not sure how many of you have actually gone through the notes. So let me just give introduction. So we have, we're going to start the topic of inventory today. The agenda is to understand the role of inventory, the different types, as well as its relevant costs. I'll get a pointer next class. So what is inventory? We had, I had shared some reading material with you. So some of you might have seen it, others might have just be waiting for this lecture. By the way, some of the topics that is covered there, I may not do it again. So let me just start with introduction to inventory. So what we mean by inventory is, it's just a stockpile of item, whatever it is, wherever it may be. So it may be waiting to be processed. In that case, we may call it as raw materials. Sometimes it may be used to be transported. They may be just in stockpile waiting for the truck to arrive, or eventually it will be get consumed, and or we'll sell it to the customer and make money. So all those things are what is called as inventory. So although not in the financial sense, but inventory is also any asset held for future use or sale. We can call it as an inventory. So there is a purpose to the inventory. Inventory has to be used so that we can make money, and that is something that gets transformed during our production process or the manufacturing process. So that's what is called as basically inventory. So now let's try and make it a little interactive, since I already shared some material. Let's start with this first question. Why hold inventory? You can just unmute yourself and say, why hold inventory? So this way I shared the slides earlier as well as trying to write it. So this test is so that we don't mess up too much. Today's topic is in the inventory. You can either unmute yourself and talk, or you can just type it in the chat. Question is, why hold inventory?
So to deal with the uncertainty in demand, or if we need to store materials for later.
Yeah. Deal with uncertainty. Oils. There is one. As buffer stock, Kshitij just type. Okay. That will come under here as buffer stock. Deal with these uncertainties. Why else we may need to keep inventory or end up having inventory?
So transportation
advantage
cost.
What about it? To reduce, let me just say transport cost.
Take advantage of low prices.
Can you repeat it, please?
Improve
Take
service.
advantage of low prices of raw material or something.
Two? I'm sorry, I can't hear you properly.
Take advantage of low prices of raw material.
Yeah. Uh, take advantage of low price of raw material is ADV dot.
Sir,
Like to balance supply and demand, so we get like effective price of each item, not overflooding the market.
What is the point again? Sorry, something about
So
over.
to balance the demand, so we will not overflood the market and the like individual price will reduce. It happens in like oil and production like that.
To prevent flooding of the market.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah. So I think most of the points we kind of covered. That's also presented, available in the slides which I had shared. One is economies of scale, which was not explicitly mentioned. Here we mean by economies of scale is, when you cannot produce 1 unit at a time. You need to produce some minimum amount of quantity for your production line to keep running. So that we can help reduce the cost. So economies of scale mainly came from the production term. But it's also true when we want to say reduce transportation cost. We can't transport 1 unit at a time. We may need to transport in larger quantities. That way we can reduce some cost. So because of that, then we have to handle large inventory. Then we have to store that much inventory with us. The one point is also told to deal with uncertainties as buffer stock. There are various things that can cause uncertainty. Demand can be uncertain, which is a very common thing that we try with. Supply can be uncertain. Lead times itself can also be uncertain. So the difference between the term supply and lead time is supply refers to supply quantity is uncertain. Lead time refers to the time it takes from going from point A to point B. Can help improve service levels. We have not defined these terms, but this is the time. So when you say improve service levels is service level can be very, as of now, can be defined as something which is the what is the fraction of customer orders we are able to fulfill. So we can fulfill demand if we have enough inventory. So that is taken as the service level. So if you have more inventory, our service level will be better. Take advantage of price or quantity discounts that was mentioned. Reduce logistics transportation cost. Smoothing seasonal demand. It may not be possible for us to produce instantaneously. Like for example, right now people will be busy making a lot of sweaters in anticipation of what may get sold in January, February. So that is, so you are making in anticipation. So once that is made, it has to be stored. There is nothing but your inventory. This is.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, we are like I am also unable to see. Also, some student has commented that we cannot see your, like whatever you are writing on the board. I think it's the video quality.
It is because of the size or the clarity itself.
Yes, sir.
Is it
Unable,
size? Bigger font is visible or?
No, sir. I can. In slides, it is visible. This blackboard, I am unable to see anything. But I think it is because of the video quality.
Okay, so let us, we'll try something.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir. So I am
Yes.
able to see your video and able to understand it. I have to do one thing, like I have to pin your video. So the video gets bigger whenever I have to see your video, and slightly.
Yeah, whenever you have to see my video, you have to pin it. Correct.
Yeah.
Does that help?
I'm
in the
also able to see, sir.
Huh?
Also able to see.
You're able to see.
Okay. I think then it is bad internet in like for some of the people. Then I think because of that, that problem is coming.
So that's okay. So that's why this is a trial lecture. I was not planning to cover new topic. So whatever I'm just telling, that's what I'm trying to write. So if you're unable to see it, we can follow this lecture for now. So we also set up as a very temporary ad hoc thing in our for all the new students. What you see, this setup is right now at your conference room. For students who have already been to our department would know that. So we're just trying to set up a room. So we'll keep improving it. I will continue to write big and see the hope that something may get recorded at least. That one. Otherwise, I'll just tell whatever I'm writing so that everybody is able to follow. I'll keep this in mind. But let's continue with this lecture. So I'll try to keep it as verbal as possible, and some other things I'll try to write it big and leave it for now. Then see what. Yeah, and maybe next time we'll try with a different camera and different setup.
So you can try one more thing that MS Team has a whiteboard which can be presented to all.
How will I write on that whiteboard?
No, sir, you can write it on that.
Then I have to get myself some. Using the mouse, I find it quite difficult to write.
Yeah, nice.
So that was the point. So anyway, I will try to get hold of some Wacom tablet and stuff like that, which is on a shared basis right now. So I'll try to get my own copy so that I can use it. Yeah. So okay. No, there's one more point. Hedge against price increase. So that's also we do. Why hold inventory, hedge against price release. What it means is we know that price is going to increase in future. So in anticipation of that, we get some inventory. Like common one which most of us would have done is when you know that from midnight petrol price is going to increase, everybody fills up their tank tonight. So that's called as hedging against price increase. So whether you want it or not, everybody fills up the tank right now, so that we save some money for some time. So overall, this inventory management is then mainly about trying to figure out for each stocking point when to reorder, how much to order, so as to minimize the cost and meet the service level requirements. So each stocking point. So stocking point refers to not just companies, even places inside company where inventory is kept, whatever it may be. So companies can have hundreds of such stocking points depending on the type of inventory that they are carrying. There can be small stocking points in front and right after machines. There can be large stocking points which the entire company can be referred to as a stock point for the finished product. For all that, we need to decide when to reorder. That is, when the next batch of material is going to come to that stocking point and how we release the material from that stocking point. So both are affected by this inventory management. And how much? So both timing as well as quantity is decided. So that broad aspect is called as inventory management. Overall objective is, in this case, is typically to minimize cost and meet the service level requirements. As we told, service level is the fraction of customer order we are able to fulfill. And in literature as well as books, you may come across this term also called as inventory control, which is used interchangeably with inventory management. Inventory control refers to tracking and maintaining the products on site. So inventory control is typical to a control problem. So those who have some electrical background or whatever, even if you're done a basic controls course. So what is it we do? We need to figure out the current state of the system and then measure its discrepancy. So just trying to figure out what is the current status is a full-time job. You need to figure out where your inventory is, how much of the quantity is there, so that just tracking it and then ensuring it doesn't go bad. If it is go bad, then that place has to be cleaned, that material has to be removed, etc. So that is called inventory control. Management, it's a little bigger view. It involves some amount of aggregate planning, some amount of forecasting comes into play, and we're looking at quantities. So those end up comes under inventory management. The more relatable example for inventory control is, imagine the inventory in your refrigerator, in your fridge. You don't really know how much there is in the fridge. Many times you just keep opening the fridge and keep staring at it. Even if you know inventory is not there, you keep staring at it. Sometimes at the back of the refrigerator, you may find some old can of some milk, or maybe some vegetable which has gone bad, or maybe yesterday's chutney was kept inside, or last week's chutney, and then you find it's already gone bad. So, meaning you are unable to keep track of inventory in one refrigerator. Imagine thousands of products sitting all over the company in various quantities. It makes it much more difficult job. Just maintaining the inventory, trying to figure out exactly how much it is, where it is. Just like at home, we do have key people within the company who knows exactly what is where. You ask them, they will know, okay, this inventory is available here. This one was borrowed by so-and-so person but has not returned. Usually in our homes, the mothers will do the job. Or actually, they do it very well. Or in my case, my wife does it very well. She knows exactly what is where, so I just have to ask her. So that is nothing but she knows where the inventory is and she's just controlling the inventory. So now this inventory comes with various terminologies, and we call things differently based on where they are, at least based on stages. So inventory based on type of inventory is the same thing. It's still inventory, but we come up with different terms to indicate very specific type of inventory. Like I think Eskimos have some 17 different words for snow, depending on whether it was early morning snow, last night snow, etc. They can differentiate snows based on 17 different phrases. So whichever is very important, they come up with different terms to clearly indicate what is it that they want. Similarly, we are doing for production systems. We want to clearly define with one word what kind of inventory it is that we are talking about. So based on stages, inventory can be before production, during production, or after production. Before production, the inventory is called as raw material inventory. They typically acts as inputs to production process. It includes components, sub-assemblies, whatever the company is procuring from somebody else and is going to put it in the manufacturing process. That is called as a raw material. Second is work in process. These are partially finished products. These products have entered the assembly line and are in some state of finishing. Some state of work does not yet become finished product yet. Something may be left. So all the thing is called as work in process. Even if the product is complete, but last stage of testing is still waiting. Again, we don't call it as finished product. It is still a sub-assembly only. Only after it's finished testing and packed, then we actually identify it as a finished product. So finished products are typically after production, which are ready for shipment and sale. So until then, they are all sub-assemblies or various other phrases we may come. Finished products are ready for shipment or sale to the customer, whichever stage you are on. If you are a manufacturing firm giving to a distributor, then we'll be talking about shipments. If you are a retailer or warehouse, you may talk about sale to the customers. Okay, so based on stages, we can come up with these phrases: raw material, work in process, finished goods. So we'll also get familiar with these terms so that in our discussions, whenever we use the term, we know what is it that we are referring to. If in case we are using a general term like inventory or item in our models and methods, that means that approach or that method is applicable for any of these stages. So material can also be classified inventory based on material as well as their purpose. depending again, as I told, we have different terminologies. So apart from just the raw material, work in process, and finished goods, we have several other materials which comes under this class of MRO. MRO stands for maintenance, repairs, and operating supplies, which typically includes all your spares as well as consumables, whatever it is that you are using, to repair machines like bearings, lubricants, bolts, nuts, whatever small things that you may end up using. They are typically called as spares and are consumables that's necessary for you to make the product, like soldering iron, etc. Tool tips, all those things comes under MRO. These things are also important, right? Those also we need to order. It is not just the raw materials, we need to order this one also. Some may again come every day, some may need to repair or replace every 6 months, 2 years. And we even have an entire thing called as spares inventory management. However, the topics are still under inventory management. Other material we end up using is something called as packing materials. So these packing materials are, as a term defines, is used to pack the material. So we have packing materials. Actually, there are two types for the packing material: primary and secondary. So primary is packaging without which your product will not be usable. You need the packaging for the product to be usable. So needed primary is needed for product to be usable. For example, if you're considering a CPU, you need to put all those things together in your CPU case. Only then the product is actually usable. Even though we just need to know that we are going to connect all these things together, but still we need to put it together so the product actually becomes usable. So those are also packing materials. Or you may call it different words like casing or something. Then the secondary type of packing material refers to the packing used for doing shipment. So I need to ship, I cannot ship 1 unit at a time. I may put them all in big carton boxes and put all those carton boxes in a big crate and nicely bubble wrap the entire thing and then ship it. So that packaging material, the cartons, etc., are called as secondary packaging materials. So that's what I wrote here: packaging material, primary and secondary. Okay. Then you have other terms like components, sub-assemblies. I think that we can sub components are any small component which is helps make a bigger product. So sub-assemblies are you put some things together, but it's not at the finished product, but that entire unit itself, you can then call it a sub-assembly. These are phrases typically used for things somewhere in between or as part of the work in process. These components and sub-assemblies come. Maybe some raw material also, but mainly as part of the production process. Based on the purpose also, we can classify the material inventory. One is goods in transit. See, whatever we order cannot come immediately, it takes some time. Whether it is raw material or is it finished goods. So until then it has to be somewhere. So that is it is in transportation. That is called as goods in transit. This transit can be in few hours, days, weeks, months. That entire thing is called as goods in transit. Even inside companies, some companies are kilometers across. So from one end of the factory to other, it may take a few hours for the inventory to come, or at least take an hour or so to come. That is still called as goods in transit. Buffer and safety stock are inventory used to capture against uncertainties. So I have some base demand, but then just to be sure, I keep some extra inventory just in case inventory. So the safety stock is nothing but just in case inventory. So all the thing is broadly called as safety stock. Anyone want to venture a guess what is anticipatory stock? Or decoupling inventory? Can you give that a shot? What is anticipatory stock or decoupling inventory? Can you just unmute yourself and talk? What is anticipatory stock?
The anticipatory will be like the sweaters you had mentioned.
Anticipatory is like the sweaters I had mentioned, but
In anticipation of the demand.
it is kept in anticipation of demand, but if it is like a seasonal stock, we are doing it as we just call it as inventory buildup. Someone else, there is a slightly bigger definition for anticipatory stock. Yeah, this is one part. This is also correct. It can also mean something else. Seasonal demand, as we told, we have to make the sweaters now so that we can sell in December, which is fine. In anticipation, we know it in future it will be more. Anything else? Any other examples or scenarios?
Expected that the demand will increase, then you will have a separate batch of stock for that.
Demand can increase, that is fine. What if demand doesn't increase, still do we need anticipatory stock? In both examples are about demand increase. If there is no demand increase, can we have anticipatory stock?
If there's some labor layoff or something, then
So anticipating some change in environment and producing for that. For example, making laptops for work from home environment. Could it be?
If somebody has anticipated it in January, then there is real very good work for them. But many didn't anticipate this particular work from home. But yeah, so basically anticipatory stock is we need to foresee the future trend and take a call based on that. That is anticipatory stock. One is sudden spike in demand we expect, then in anticipation we buy it now itself, which is good, which can be seasonal or it can be just one off. What can I say? End of some festival is coming or something. Or it can be for just a simple reasons like a long weekend is coming. So in anticipation, some of us may go and get money from the ATM because we know ATM on the weekend may just go dry. So in anticipation, people may get cash. That is also kind of anticipatory. In anticipation, for example, if you anticipate some supply disruption can happen, then I buy the raw material early. If I expect some price will increase of either raw material of whatever the product. So I'm the manufacturer, raw material, if I'm the trader and the finished product. If I expect the price is going to increase, then in anticipation I'm going to buy more quantities and keep. So those are all called as anticipatory stock. Typically these anticipatory stock are kind of more short term in nature. We don't plan really long term for this. Decoupling inventory, anyone want to venture a guess? We have not discussed this, but want to venture a guess.
Sir, it is like a safety stock when, say for example, when there is a hitch or stoppage in production, so some part is kept aside, so that can be used.
That's good. Who is this?
Sir, Shubham.
Shubham. Nice, good.
Yeah.
So decoupling inventory mainly deals with work in process inventory. So what he told is, so the production process, all the machines are not the same. Different machines work at different paces. Some may do a batch input. Some may produce individually. So we can't allow the line to go idle. We can't allow the machine to remain idle for long. So you need to keep some inventory in front of those machines to ensure that if any disruption or any delays happen upstream, like some machine upstream is delayed, but still this machine can continue running for some time. Ideally, continue running until that machine gets back up. So the entire inventory you may need to keep just to ensure that the machine actually is working. So that is what is called as decoupling inventory. Typically that phrase is used with reference to production process where we have multiple machines, and suppose some machine always operates in large batches of say 100 per round. So you can imagine some sort of a furnace is there, or yeah. So we want to batch in hundreds and give it, but upstream machines give in only single units. So you might want to run the machines, have enough stock, so that as soon as this main machine gets finished, the furnace, the next 100 can go in, the next 100 can go in, etc. So that ideally we just want to, as soon as it's finished, we want the next 100, but we don't know. There may be some disruption upstream, so we are keeping some extra inventory so that the main machine is not unduly affected by something upstream. So that is called as decoupling inventory. Cycle inventory. Anybody want to venture a guess what is cycle inventory?
The average inventory which is used after a certain period, which is forecasted.
Average inventory, okay. Average inventory of what? Cycle inventory is written as average inventory. This mainly comes because average inventory due to purchase or production in large lot sizes. Average inventory due, I'm just saying out loud, average inventory due to purchase or production in lot sizes greater than demand. You can, for this, can even imagine your own home. Like when you buy, say, vegetables, you don't buy it for that meal cooking. You buy it and store for, say, a week worth of vegetables you buy. So at the start of the week, you may not have a place in the fridge to store everything, but at the end of the week, there is a lot of empty space. So then we say that the average inventory is full minus whatever plus 0 divided by 2. That is assuming you're taking it constant every day, little amount. So that is called as cycle inventory. And with the average inventory that you're holding only because you are purchasing in larger lot size than you can actually consume. Why? So one key decision of inventory management is to decide what is this lot size. So lot size refers to the quantity you are using to purchase. So that is called as lot size. How much quantity you are purchasing in one order. So that is one of the key decisions that we will be learning various methods. Okay, now let's move on. There are more ways to classify inventory based on value. Over time, this ABC classification has come out to be a very interesting and a very straightforward approach, which is helped to decide which inventory to focus on. So based on the value of the inventory, we decide whether it is A category or B category or C category. It can go more, you can have a D and E category also, but broadly speaking, we have A, B, C. Where A are the most important, about 20% of SKUs typically account for 80% of the sale, the dollar value of inventory. So that is called as class A. So that is the 20% of SKU stands for stock keeping unit. This definition will come up in a couple of minutes. Just assume some item. 20% of inventory items will account for 80% of the dollar value. So then we focus on only the 20%. then we have class B and class C, which accounts for lesser percentages. That's typically what we call as ABC analysis. Why it is useful is, based on this we can then decide, okay, for type A, I need to better manage my inventory, know exactly what is its level, so that I reorder and ensure sufficient quantities of item A is there, because item A accounts for 80% of my money value. Though the inventory is still 20%, 80% of money value is locked up in that. While the rest of the products are contributing less to your bottom line. So we can come up with different schemes. So each product can have different inventory management scheme. There is no such thing like, okay, this is one policy where every product in a company will follow it. It doesn't typically happen like that. Different products may have different schemes. We may need to figure out which is the best. So I've included an example to quickly illustrate what it is. This ABC example, typically this is what we initially do to do ABC classification. In any company, all the items are coded, or 101, 102 in this case, or whatever it has some name to uniquely describe it. And suppose the cost per unit is also known. Let us assume these are the final products that is being sold, and this is the annual sales is also given. For example, item 103 has a unit cost of 15 and annual sales of 50 units. Okay. We have to ensure that units are consistent in this case. We'll come to it again, but it's cost per unit and annual sales also measured in the same units. So first step we need to do is compute its total value. Total value is nothing but annual sales into cost per unit. Why we do that? Now you can compare these three columns: cost per unit, annual sales, and total value. In cost per unit, the most expensive item is item 106, right, 75 rupees. The second followed by 104, 102, 50 rupees each. So as per cost, those three are the most important. But if you look at sales, item 114 is 1500 units. Item 110 is 750 units, and item 111 is 450 units. These are the top three. So physically, forget accounting purpose, physically imagine a person who's handling inventory. So he is moving 1500 units of 104, item number 114, and 750 units of item 110 every year. So he's going to be spending a lot of time moving these inventories, right? So physically, that person in the ground is spending a lot of time in these particular inventories. But now observe the total value. When you observe total value, you can see that item 106 has a maximum value, followed by item 110. Right? That seems to be in the 22,000, other is 18,000, and the rest are all less than between 1,000 to 5,000. There are a few, and the rest are all below 1,000. So now, this entire ABC analysis, the idea is we decide what is the percentage value contribution by each of those items, and then give priority to that. So we compute the percentage value here of corresponding to the total value, take the percentage. So two clearly stand out: 106 item and 110 item, which is 37% and 31% respectively. So then we sort the table. We compute what is called as cumulative percentage. Of course, we can compute and sort it, and take the one which has the maximum cumulative percentages, and then do that as a call it class A, because that contributes maximum to our value. And then somewhere it can be, in this case, 67%. It can go up to 80%. And then we can do B, some of the items in B, and then the rest of the items which is less than 2% contribution to your bottom line is type C. So you can see, observe in type C that there are items which are very expensive, like 50 rupee item. Still, it is an item C. There are some, so those higher value items are still classified as class C. The lower value items, like there is item 115, which costs 15 rupees, which is still classified as item B. This is not precise classification. For example, you can argue that item 115 can be either in B or A. That depends on how you want to do it. But here there's a huge difference, 18,000 to 5,000. So I put it as B. You can call it as A if you want. So this, so once we do this, then we can actually figure out which inventory policy to use for each of it. We'll be covering inventory policy for next 2-3 weeks. Or not 2-3 weeks, at least 2 weeks. Before we go into the math of it, analytics, I would like to just mention about. Yeah, you have any question or comments?
Sir, why do we use the cost per unit and not the margin per unit or something else?
So, we're using the cost per unit and not the value. So, here we are kind of minimizing the, what is it, the two assumptions are actually going inside this one. One is we are minimizing the cost in inventory models. We don't really look at maximizing profit. We are looking at minimizing the cost. So we are looking at what is the most expensive items that we are dealing with, and then try to handle it more clearly. And another implicit assumption going on is this margin is kind of proportional to whatever the cost that we are handling. So those two implicit assumptions are there. That's why we are doing it. So most of inventory models are looking at this cost minimization, hence this method. I have to see how it works with margin. If we take the actual margin, what kind of classification comes, we have to see. Yeah. So yeah, if that works, that we can try that one also. There is nothing hard and fast about that. Any other questions, comments? So now before we go in for actual models and stuff, so first important one is to identify inventory. The three things we need to do to identify inventory. One is called as SKUs. So any company you go, you will come up with this SKU or SKU, they keep calling it. Each distinct item in inventory at a location is called an SKU. So at different points in the supply chain, you can have different SKU terms. So each distinct item. So what we mean by that is, for example, you can imagine the, what can you say, Tetra Pak juice that you get, right? So each juice, like small Tetra Pak, the 5 rupee or 10 rupee wala, that may not be an SKU. That may be an SKU at a retailer level. Manufacturer may actually make hundreds of such units. So he may actually pack it in a crate with a dozen unit. So that can be a SKU, or you can pack that in, 2 dozen units. That can also become an SKU. So you can have different kinds of SKUs in the company, but given an SKU, uniquely identify some product combination. Second, more important one to identify is we need to have a label to identify what inventory we have, where we have it. It can come in the form of readable labels, barcodes, QR codes, RFIDs, whatever it is. But believe me, this is one of the most common problems in the industry. People struggle to find the material. It was supposed to be there, it is not there. Sometimes you find the material, but you have no idea what is inside, because it's not like you can open it and figure it out, right? Imagine a carton which is there, which is fully closed. You have to know what is inside without breaking it open. So it becomes important to clearly mark what it is. Third one is unit of measure. We need to know how we are actually doing the counting. As I told, right? When you go to a shop and ask for say 2 fruity, probably you're referring to 2 small Tetra Paks. But the retailer, when he orders to the distributor, when he says 2 fruity, he may mean 2 cases of fruity. But at the production level, when they say 2 lots of fruity, they are not looking at just 2 boxes of fruity. They are looking at 2 lots. 1 lot could be 1,000 units. So we need to know exactly what is the unit of measure people are using there and how they are referring to the products. Whether they do it in sets, they do it in boxes, they do it in packets, they are using it in trays, crates, kilograms, tons, gallons, ounces. That has to be clear. Many times it's a very common problem where miscommunication is very easy to occur. So that is one thing which has to be clear up front. Yeah, there are many problems are on day-to-day level at the when they call it operational problems at a warehouse, which an warehouse manager is expected to look at. Many can be solved by just following these kind of identifying inventory, including identifying old products or number discrepancy, the label was wrongly labeled, log was improper. You type something but type something else in the computer system, or more bigger problem, nobody knows. So managing inventory, the first thing as operations analysts or managers you need to do is you should be aware what is coming in, what is going out. You should be aware of your process. You should be aware of your process. What is coming in, what is going out. You should be aware. Only then you will know how much it is there in the company. It is not enough if analysts sitting in a computer room is aware of it. The people in the shop floor must be made aware. People in the warehouse must be made aware. Okay, what is coming? Okay, something is going to come in the afternoon. Okay, afternoon there's another shipment. People should be aware all the time what is happening, what is coming in, what is going on. Okay, when it comes, where should I store it? Many problems occur only because material come, we don't know how to unload, who will unload, where to unload and keep it. And after unloading, they know that they put it on top of something, but whatever is in the bottom is what is to be shipped next. Then they have to again remove it. So a lot of such what they call as operational issues in reality, practice, are all related with, to large extent with these things. So with that we'll kind of just characterize some of the inventory systems and then leave it at that, I guess. Okay. So now we are going to be looking at inventory system and coming up with some good analytical models to see how we can manage that inventory systems. That's pretty much what we are going to do. So in that we are going to be looking at various things plays a role in that actual model that we develop. One assumption that we are going to make is demand. Demand is known. Demand can be constant or deterministic, or demand can be unknown or stochastic. That is changes over time. We will be looking at both the models. Demand is deterministic as well as stochastic. Both we will look at. Second thing which we use to characterize is the lead time. Lead time refers to how long, after you make an order, how long it takes for it to be produced. So sometimes we assume it's instantaneous. Like I say it, it happens immediately. It is quite, why we do that is analytically it is quite straightforward model. And it gives us a good thumb rule for all the other cases. Or lead time can be finite. It takes some constant amount of time. So I can use that. Other time I can assume instantaneous is the lead time is in few hours, but my planning is really long in say months or in year, then that few hours may look like instantaneous for us. If you're higher. In finite lead time, it takes some non-zero time. Again, the time can be deterministic or stochastic. We'll be looking at all these three scenarios in our models. So each combination will come up with a new models for extension. The third one is called as review period. Like how often you're checking the inventory. How often are you able to track the inventory? Even with the latest IT gadgets and RFIDs, etc., we just make it very difficult even to detect inventory every time when any sale happens or anything new comes, you can log it in the system. But reviewing it and taking a decision whether to order inventory or not order inventory, that some products it's continuous, many products it is periodic, and other variants are also possible. Again, we will be looking at both these scenarios in our models. Third assumptions that we use to characterize is how we are handling excess demand. Excess demand is I have inventory of say 100 units. Suppose I have an order of 110. What happens to this extra 10? You went to the shop, you ask for say dozen, whatever. You want to buy 10 milk packets. The shopkeeper had only 5 milk packets, so you got the 5. But what happens to the remaining 5 from the shopkeeper's perspective? One, nothing happens. In the sense we usually assume that scenario never occurs and do our math. Second is we can assume that demand is lost and I don't need to worry about it. The third scenario is demand can be back ordered. Yeah, so those are the. So again, we'll be looking at all these 3 cases. Next characterize we do is called discounts. At least for base model, we start with saying that there is no discount. Whatever you purchase, it is just, if you purchase 10 units, it's 10 into cost of product. If you purchase 10,000 units, it's 10,000 in cost of products, no discount. But come on, in India, we have to bargain, we have to get discounts. So either discount can be all units discount or incremental discounts. We'll be looking at all these cases in our inventory course. Now some other slightly different points, some of which we may not consider in this course. One is number of stocking points. Typically all the models that we see is going to consider only one stocking point at a time, meaning at one location what you manage inventory. If you want to simultaneously manage inventory at multiple locations, then you are already moving into supply chain domain, which we may not do through in this course. Planning horizon is something we may not tamper with too much. Some of the models we may take it a single period model, that is you just order every week or only once, done. It's typically useful for unique products which cannot be carried over to the next period. Some models are finite periods, some are infinite periods. Infinite period model gives analytically good result because you get a steady state approximation. If you keep doing it for a long time, this is average expected. So many nice results comes out of infinite periods. Some amount of finite period also we may see, and some single period models also we will see. Perishability, again we have to characterize inventory. None. This is what typically we are going to assume. But then goods can deteriorate over time, because of which, even though your system shows inventory is there, it's actually all gone bad. So just occupying space, right? So we may not look much of it, but let's see. I'm not decided on that. Other is number of items. We are going to, most of inventory model is going to look at one item at a time or one family of item. But when you consider many items and that they have co-dependencies, that the model and the method actually becomes quite hard. Even can become as close as NP hard if you combine with number of items as well as number of stopping points. So we may typically going to consider only one item at a time and assume they are all independent of each other, and then keep, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Capacity, this refers to the capacity of the stocking place, like how much inventory the warehouse can handle, how much inventory that retailer can handle. But typically we assume going to unlimited capacity is what you're going to assume. To some cases we may take limited. So using all these characteristics, as well as we have seen various types of inventory, based on that again we may have slightly different variants in the thing. You can see it's a huge rich area where you can have, based on the different scenarios and settings, you can have different mathematical models and analytical models you're going to see. And some of them have a really nice thread and relation with each other. So we will expand it by adding, relaxing one assumption at a time. We'll make a lot of assumption initially, make a model simple, and then slowly we'll relax assumptions and make the model a little more challenging for us to work on. So yeah, we're almost out of time. So while handling, I will just briefly mention this. So while doing any of this inventory modeling analysis, we are going to be pretty much focused on 3 different costs. As I told, inventory models are typically focused on minimizing costs. So the 3 costs that we are going to be interested in is, one is called as holding cost, which is very direct. I have inventory, it costs me something to hold that inventory there. So you can imagine a warehouse. So if I'm going to use a warehouse in my factory, that means I need to buy that much of real estate space. I need to go rent for that space or whatever. Even if it's my own land, I need to pay the bank some money for that land. And I need to then store that inventory in that place. Further, I need to buy insurance, I need to have managers, I need to have pay electricity bills, I need to pay my taxes, my insurance, and somehow the inventory may get lost, some may get spoiled, some may break because of mishandling. Anything can happen, or it can just become obsolete also. So those are direct costs concerned with the inventory maintaining of it. There is some other notion also called as opportunity cost. See, why are we doing all this manufacturing inventory management, right? We want to make money. Suppose you put your 100 rupees in the bank, or whatever, say, too less. Let's put 10,000 rupees in the bank. Then the bank currently, I think, savings account gives you 6% interest, 7% interest. That's what it gives, right? So now, when I'm making a business, if I buy the inventory, and finally if I make only say 5% or 3% returns on it, then it doesn't make any sense. I want to make at least 10% to 40% money, so that's why I want to invest. So now, if I buy the inventory, then that is opportunity cost. Refers to the return on investment if money has otherwise been invested. So I could have invested in stock market, I could have invested in just a savings bank account is the most lowest form of savings possible. Anything higher, right? So there is an opportunity lost because I have to pay for the inventory. So more I keep, that means I have less money for doing something else. So that can also come into the calculation of this holding cost. So maybe run out of time, so I don't want to go into the calculation of it. The second is order cost. Each time I order inventory, there is some cost involved. More direct one is I need to maintain a purchase department with a couple of at least employees who's actually making the purchase order. You have to have a computer, you have a system. So that is some setup is involved in actually making the order. Then you have to pay some transport cost, fixed cost, and some handling cost. Something is involved. Some are fixed cost. Some are variable cost. If you order 10 units, it will cost me 10 into the price of product. If you order 100 units, it will cost 100 into price of product. So those are all come under what is called as ordering cost. So once ordered, when the material comes, then I incur holding cost. So these two are more direct of handling the inventory. There is also a third cost which is slightly more tricky to calculate. Is called as penalty or shortage or stockout cost. That is little difficult to calculate in the sense, like as I told you, go to the shop, you ask for 10 packets of milk, the shopkeeper has only 5. So he has lost out a business of selling additional 5 units of milk. But just keeping track of it, one off he can maybe remember in his head. But many times customer may not ask, he may just look at the shelf and find only 5 packets and take 5. You may not even know what is the true demand. So in that sense, penalty shortage is slightly more difficult. Sometimes if you order in upfront, then there's something called as a back ordering occurs. Like you tell the shopkeeper, okay, you get the extra 5 packets of milk, I'll come back and take it in the evening. Right? Then again the shopkeeper has to call, send his whatever labor to another shop or somewhere else, buy the material, come back. So there is some additional penalty involved, additional cost. That is what we call as back order or delayed sales penalty cost. This lost sales, a loss of goodwill, as I told, is not just on that immediate loss of sale, but can also affect the future profit. If 2 times you go to the shop and it doesn't have what you want, you will probably not go there the 3rd time, right? So that is also future profit is also lost for that company. So that's typically, these are kind of tough to estimate, but notionally we can see that there is some penalty cost out there. We'll try to consider it in our model. We'll see how to calculate it later. There can be other things like obsolescence cost, meaning the value is lost over time. Like older products, we want higher discount, right? Because its value is lost. Right now, you want to get the 2015 iPhone at a much lower price than what is actually sold, because the latest iPhone is already released. So the product has lost value over time. So we ran over a little bit, but I think it's okay. In summary, we looked at what is inventory, any stockpile of item to be used in future is inventory. Various terminologies has been introduced based on production stages, material, purpose, value. We looked at how do we characterize the models and how we are going to be using the different costs. So this is introduction. Again, a lot of new terminology has come in. We are going to be seeing many variants of this as we go along in the course. Yeah, thank you. So I can take any questions or comments you have right now. And, if it's already time and you have to leave, you can leave, that's fine. Or you can be here for some questions. Yeah.
Sir, in the article you had shared, it was talking about pipeline inventory. So I wasn't able to understand. So how is that inventory for the company, the transport company? It is the product for them, right? Something like that. Like once it's out of the warehouse, why is it considered to be inventory?
See, inventory is any stockpile of goods is called inventory. So if I'm the manufacturer, right? I've ordered something from my supplier. So my supplier has to ship the material. Supplier has to ship the material. So in between it has to be accounted for, right? Otherwise we won't know where it is. So we have a supplier. We have a manufacturer. So he ordered something, the manufacturer ordered something, the supplier, after 2 weeks he made all the production and then he shipped. So manufacturer need to know, we need to know this, not WIP, it's called as goods in transit. So we need to know how much inventory is actually coming. So you know that inventory is going to reach you at some point in time. So goods in transit become value because you know that whatever is in transit is going to reach you at some particular time. So I need to know how much it is there. If you don't know that work in process, then how will you know whether it is in transit or not, when it is going to reach? So accordingly I can make the next order. I made order now, and once I know how much it is there and at what stage, then I can plan for the future. So that's why we have to keep track of that inventory. Manufacturer may not keep track of what is supplier's inventory. But once the supplier ships it, he immediately tells the manufacturer, hey, I have shipped this material. Now it is on its way. Now it will reach you, whatever, 3 days later. And then 3 days later, whether it's not reaching, again update comes, okay, it will take 1 more day. So manufacturer need to account for that material that is in transit before he orders. In case something happens, then he has to figure out. So that's why we want to keep it in transit. So this goods in transit is also called as pipeline inventory. Goods in transit is also called as pipeline inventory. Pipeline need not mean a physical pipeline. It's a conceptual pipeline. Any other questions, comments?
Sir, what will be the format of the quiz for the Wednesday?
Format for the quiz. Good. Somebody asked, read about the quiz. I'm planning to use the SAFE app. Maybe we'll have it in 1 hour quiz. Some sort of an MCQ or numerical questions where you write the answers. And there will be some numericals involved in the quiz. We have covered break even and some forecasting. So something which can compute by hand, pen and paper. It may not require you to run, solve spreadsheets or anything, but it will expect you to solve something by hand on paper, pen, maybe enter the final answer, or maybe take a picture of your workings and then share it. So that is going to be the format of the quiz. Is that clear?
Will there be subjective questions like those asked in the model?
Yeah, some MCQs like that can also be there. Yep. Anything else? On the topic of that's all, then maybe you can share your comments on either chat now. I mean, now itself is good on the how visible it was on the blackboard or the how well the voice was. Are you able to hear more clearly or something. Give some feedback. So yeah, this is the first time we are trying it. So I wanted to see whether some lectures I can give some more onboard classroom experience rather than just sitting and talking. So you can share your comments on that also.
Whatever is written on the board is not visible if someone is using laptop, but by mobile somewhat visible.
On mobile it is visible.
Yeah, somewhat, not clearly, but
laptop
on
is
laptop,
not visible. Okay, that's
not at all.
counterintuitive. Okay, we'll keep that
No,
in
sir.
mind.
On laptop, it is visible for me.
So some may be visible, some may not. So you can share who is visible, who is not. Then we'll take a call. That's why this time I didn't write anything. I didn't solve or come up with anything really new. Most of the things are written on the write-ups, or I just spoke it, or it is in the slides. So even if you couldn't see it, you can manage this one. But yeah, the good feedback. Let me see how we can improve it.
So the camera, I think, the camera goes in and out of focus. That's why.
Camera goes in and out of focus. Okay, let us note it.
So otherwise, I don't think there is a problem with, this screen, this mode.
Okay, fine. But my voice is clear. I can hear you very nicely. So our speaker system seems to be working. Good.
Yeah.
That's great. Camera, now we have to figure out what it is. So since not the first year students, there are many undergrad students. You have done courses in CDeep, correct? Your recording studio, CDeep. And you have done courses in CDeep?
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to replicate some part of it. Nice. That's all. But even here we have restrictions on using the CDeep studio because of COVID. So we have to develop our own units here. See, that's a problem. In case of poor connection, the video quality is low. Yes. So I will keep that in mind. I will try to, whatever key concepts in this, I'll try to put up videos of it. Even for this one, I'll see if I can put a shorter video, or at least cut this and do specific points. I'll keep that. Yeah, I'm not planning to make I'm not planning to shift everything to the board. Don't worry about it. But I want to keep this option so that at least some sessions we can do this. Okay, that's all. Class is over, so you can leave. Or something else you can stay. That's all. Thank you.
Sir?
Yeah.
So what is the weightage of the next quiz compared to the previous quizzes which we had on the model? Like this one seems to be a major quiz. So.